She didn't come with a clipboard or a camera, didn't need a platform or a stage. She just showed up at the door with a cup of coffee and sat with her through every broken page. No hidden agenda behind her kindness, no fine print in the hand she reached out first. Just one woman saying, I see you, I've got you, and meaning every word. This is what we give each other, not a debt, not a deal, just a hand in the dark. This is what it means to be human. You don't need a reason to open your heart. We are all just passing through this together. Every scar you carry, I have carried too. This is what we give each other, me to you. She drove 3 hours to sit in that courtroom, held her hand when the verdict broke her down. Never asked for a thank you or a mention, never needed anyone to know she was there. There are women in this world who show up quietly, who carry others without making it their name. And the world would be colder, darker, hungrier without the ones who came. It doesn't require a title or a mission statement. It doesn't require a building with your name above the door. It just requires the willingness to turn towards someone when everything inside you says you've got nothing left. Oh, the ones who gave the most never counted. The ones who healed the most were healing too. Humanity is not a word, it's a decision. And every day we get to choose. This is what we give each other, not a debt, not a deal, just a hand in the dark. This is what it means to be human. You don't need a reason to open your heart. We are all just passing through this together. Every scar you carry, I have carried too. This is what we give each other, me to you. Just me to you. Just me to you. Still here, still showing up for no other reason than that you matter. Still here, still showing up.
Live on the air, Trial Junkies United presents Justice After Dark with your host, The.
Greetings to all of our trial junkies, truth seekers, and justice warriors. I see we have my mods, Irish Luna, Semi Sharp, and Katrina here. We have Farquaad. We have let's see. Oh, we have someone new. Brendan, welcome. Let's see if I've missed anybody. We welcome you to tonight's episode. We also, hey Billy, good to see you, darling.
Did you mention Josh? I don't remember.
Josh?
Yeah.
Hey Josh, any lurkers that are here, we welcome you also. Mustang, I'm Z, your storyteller in the wilderness of injustice with my ride or die Doc, riding shotgun as we navigate the darkness where the predators hunt and sometimes wear the clothes of rescuers. Tonight's different. Tonight we're not talking about a stranger in the dark. We're going to be talking about nonprofits. some that actually hide behind religion, that open their doors to people at their lowest point, survivors of trafficking who are trying to rebuild their lives, people that fight addiction, who just had walked out of prison maybe. They need somewhere to stand up and rebuild, people who reach for help, people who trusted them. And those organizations turn that vulnerability into a business model. And we've got questions. Doc, are you ready to ride?
Yes, I am.
You know, there's always a promise buried in every charity brochure, every nonprofit mission statement, every faith based shelter that hangs across on the door. We see you, we'll protect you, we'll help you heal. But what happens when the organization making that promise is running its own system of control? Tonight, we're talking about a pattern that has been documented across this country in nonprofit organizations, many of them operating under a religious banner. They take in vulnerable people, including people in addiction, those coming from violent situations with nowhere else to go, and instead of providing help, they put those people to work without pay, without a real path out, under conditions that look a lot like what the law defines as forced labor, labor trafficking. We're going to focus mainly on Texas, but this isn't just a Texas problem, everybody. It's an American problem. Investigators have identified at least 300 rehab facilities in 44 states that have required participants to work without pay. Because the federal government leaves rehab regulations to states, and most states don't require the programs to be licensed. The majority of them operate with almost no oversight. Over 33,700 offender rehabilitation programs in the US that assist with reintegration after incarceration. It's not an exact number for the trafficking programs. But one thing I want to say before we go on any further, and this matters, two things can be true at one time. Someone can be struggling with addiction, but they still deserve to be paid for their labor. Someone can be a trafficking survivor, and still be exploited by the program that promised to rescue them. Someone can be deeply religious, deeply well intentioned, and still run a system that causes harm. Good intentions and accountability are not opposites. If the mission is real, accountability should be welcome. And before we talk about Texas with our guests, because we have the lovely Chong back with us tonight, I want to show you a pattern in action elsewhere so that you see it's more than what we have here in Texas. The harder it becomes to call any single case an accident. Asheville, North Carolina. Jennifer Warren ran a drug rehab called Recovery Connections. She promised free counseling, recovery support. When participants arrived, she put them to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week at adult care homes for the elderly and disabled. No training, no paycheck. They dispensed medication, they bathed patients, they did it all for free. While Warren used donated funds to go to vacations in Paris, Greece, New Orleans. She used their food stamps to stock her own kitchen. She collected free salon appointments, concert tickets, designer goods, all solicited in the name of helping these people. While the same people ate ramen and sometimes went to bed hungry. At least 7 participants were accused of assaulting patients at the facilities, but none was reported. The accused were simply moved to a different location. North Carolina's own probation officials described Recovery Connections internally as a bad agency run by dangerous people, but they kept sending people there anyway. Richard Geller was finally getting sober. He went to a place in Missouri. For the first time, he was in recovery at Heartland Recovery Center. It required them to work at a nonprofit dairy operation. The van that took him to the job, no seatbelts. The seats faced backward and weren't bolted to the floor. The back doors didn't latch. One was held with a bungee cord. When the driver accelerated to avoid a piece of farm equipment, Richard shot out of his seat, and through the back doors, he landed head first. He died 2 days later. He was 51. His mother said this is the first time he got sober. Birmingham, Alabama, the Love Lady Center ran for years as a licensed residential recovery program for women. Then its operators made a strategic decision. They declared it faith-based organization. The moment they did, no state licensing agency had any authority over them. None. Hundreds of women still passed through every year. Many of them worked without pay at a Love Lady-run thrift store and a Christian daycare center. When one participant finally filed a complaint that she was forced to work for free, the Alabama Department of Labor told her there was nothing the state could do. The Federal Department of Labor had investigated Love Lady years earlier and ordered it to pay its workers a minimum wage. Former participants told investigators they still didn't pay consistently after the order. The complaint was filed at the federal level. No one immediately followed up. And there is the case that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court in 1985. Tony and Susan Alamo Foundation ruled unanimously by the Supreme Court 9-0 that what you're doing to these people is not employment and it's not ministry and not volunteering. The foundation ran gas stations, grocery stores, hog farms, a motel, and roofing companies. A commercial empire staffed entirely by people it had pulled out of addiction, homelessness, and incarceration. No cash wages, just food, shelter, clothing in exchange for their labor. The foundation called them volunteers. The court called it what it was. The economic reality test doesn't care what you call it. It looks at dependency control, whether a human being could walk away and what they'd be walking away to. These workers had nothing. They were entirely dependent on the foundation for survival. The Supreme Court said the dependency defines the relationship. Those benefits are wages. No employer gets to pressure vulnerable people into waiving their legal protections by calling exploitation a calling. That was 1985. Tony Alamo was convicted of child sex trafficking in 2009. The labor violations were the warning. The system heard it, ruled on it, and looked away as abuse deepened. This is not a coincidence. This is not an oversight. This is what happens when the law wins in the courtroom but loses everywhere else. Because nobody wanted to go back in and keep looking. The religious wrapper didn't change what was happening inside these walls. It just changed who was willing to see it. The reason I walked you through these cases before we talk about Texas is before we hear from our guests is this. Every time investigators found a problem, the most common response from state agencies was some version of, that's not our jurisdiction. That labor board told people to talk to the health department. The health department said, talk to the AG. The AG goes, hey, the feds, talk to the feds. The feds back down when powerful organizations push back. And the people inside these programs, they stayed inside. If you think that was a collection of isolated cases, just one bad actor, one unusual organization, stay right here. Because what happened inside all of these programs happened despite the system. It happened because of the system. And the system is fully intact today. And our first guest, Chong, has been doing this work in the field for years and has seen up close what happens when the rescue becomes the cage. And we're bringing back one of our favorite trafficking advocates because she's the real deal. Hey, Chong, welcome. How are you? Still not hearing you, sweetie.
Still not hearing you.
Let's see. We had her just a minute ago because we were chatting.
Yeah, we had her just fine. Now it's like your microphone is turned off or something.
Yeah. Irish says we love you, Chong. Okay, while Chong works on her sound, Doc, keep working with her.
Okay.
Let's go and talk with Terri. Terri, you're also an advocate in these situations, what are some of the things that you have seen?
So, actually, one of the girls that was in Heaven's Army lived with us for a while when she came out of the program, and I watched very personally the struggles that she had came through, and the spiritual abuse that she had endured, and the things that she told that weren't even true. It was so bad when she first came to our home. Um, we had went out to go somewhere, and she was like, "I need a drink," and so we pulled into a convenience store, and she looked at me and she was like, "You're not going in?" I'm like, "No, you can go get a drink." And she was like, "No, I need an accountability partner with me at all times." And I'm like, "No, honey, you can go in that store and get you a drink." And it was watching her come through the mental part of everything. I wasn't an advocate at that time, but that is part of what formed me into being an advocate. I went back to Sam Houston State University, got a degree in criminal justice with a minor in victim studies, and I've been an advocate about 5 years. I've watched more of these women. You know, one of them that was in forced labor very recently in this program. She was in my office the first time I met her, and I said, "Hey, you need a drink?" And she was like, "Yeah." And we had like some off-brand sports drink, and I went and got her one, and she looked at it and like she couldn't even speak, and she just started crying, and I just gave her that space for a minute, just to cry, and ended up in my floor screaming. I mean, screaming, and just was down in the floor with her, letting her come through this, and found out that they had pallets of this same sports drink in the garage, and they worked all day long out in the Texas heat, and they weren't allowed to have any of it. And just seeing that bottle of sports drink triggered her so bad that she was in my floor screaming. It
Yeah.
I this is just I see this stuff like time after time after time, and we've rescued some girls out off of the streets, literally. And you don't get a lot of the thank yous like you think you're going to when when you first get them. Like they're still in fight or flight mode, and they don't know that
Right.
you're not the enemy out there to get them too. So you have to learn what's aggression and what's repression. So
Yeah.
they're repressed from a lot of the feelings and emotions and things that they can do. And you have to learn they're not being aggressive towards you, they're still in fight or flight mode. So
Yeah.
these are just the things in the area that we're seeing in law enforcement turning their backs on it. One town that we got a girl out of, within 10 minutes of being there, I already knew where they were trafficking out of, had identified two of the people that were trafficking, and identified five girls that were being trafficked within 10 minutes. And the chief of police looks me in the face and says, "I didn't know that was going on in my town." I said, you know, I really don't think I'm that much smarter than you are. And I had it figured out in 10 minutes. So how can you not figure it out when this is your town? And
Shame on him.
our meeting was over at that point. He had nothing else to say to me. It shut down right then.
Yeah. Chong, do we got sound yet? We're
No,
still not hearing you.
still not hearing you.
Let's see.
Can you do me a favor? If can you log out and then log back in and see if that makes a difference?
Sometimes that does help. So log out and then log back in,
Okay.
because we do have I've had to do that myself. And our community knows I have issues with sound at times. That's just part of why we're so special.
Yes.
But and so what we're going to be talking about specifically is one group that has affected the three ladies that are with us, and that is Heaven's Army. It's located in Cleveland, Texas, and we're going to be talking about their personal experiences that they've had with this. Um, oh, Racy, I'm glad you're here, darling. So let's, while we wait for Chong to pop back in, we'll go ahead and ask Stephanie. Uh, we have Wanda, Stephanie and Hailey, and they have all experienced this with this organization. Stephanie, tell us how you got involved with Heaven's
So
Army.
I was in prison. I had spent 2 years in prison because I had my probation revoked. And she came to the prison. She actually came to the prison, like a week before I got out. And she, at first, was just, trying to get me to come to her program. At first, I was rude to her. I would not go because I was like, I know who sent you. And then she just convinced, she was like, no, nobody sent me. They told me you were here, but I came myself. And she made all these promises. She promised to help me get my kid back after getting out of prison. You lose your kids. So she promised to help me get my child back. She promised an awesome support system to further my relationship with Jesus. She promised that I would be able to go get healing and make a new support system to where I wouldn't have to live the life that I lived. That
Are y'all hearing her?
Yeah.
And so that's how I met her. She came to the prison to get me to come to her program. So I got out of prison and I literally had the opportunity to go with her, or the opportunity to go with people that were still living in the same lifestyle that I lived before I got in trouble. Well, yeah, so it was a no-brainer for me.
Okay.
Of course, I wanted to change my life and get everything back on track.
Okay. Let's quick check. And Chong, are you back with us, or?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay!
We can hear Chong. Okay.
Yay!
And
Okay.
we're going to come back to Stephanie's story, because we've got her going toward this to Heaven's Army. But Chong, let's jump back just a wee bit and talk about your experience with Heaven's Army.
Okay, so I had a friend of mine that was pregnant, and she was also on drugs. She wanted to get clean. She wanted to get her life together before her baby was born. So a friend of mine, she told me about Heaven's Army, and she said it's in Texas, because I contacted my friend, because she lives in Florida, and that's where my friend was. So she said, no, take her to Cleveland, Texas. I had no idea what Cleveland, Texas was. So she gave me Lenore's number. Me and Lenore talked over the phone. She told me about her program. She said, yes, we take in women. When I told her that my friend is pregnant, and she said, oh, well, after the baby is born, we have to take the baby away from us. And I was like, no. So that's when I told my friend, you're not going to this program. I don't care what program you are, you never take anybody's baby away from them. I don't care what it is. And so unless, like I said, you're a prison or some kind of recovery program, like a mental health or something like that. But anyway, but when me and Lenore got to talking, she said, on New Year's Eve, I have an event and I would love for you to come and speak. And I said, sure. And she told me, we don't have a lot of money. So I told her, I said, well, I'll just come speak for free, because I never been to Cleveland, Texas. And she told me it's a small town. And so when I got there, she didn't greet me. Instead, her girls greeted me, which was very unusual. And I've been doing public speaking for over 20 years. I've also done advocacy work in over 20 years. And I have never, ever seen where the constituents are the one that greets the guest.
Right.
And so when I saw the minor girl, she was there. She was the first one that showed up. She grabbed my bags. And I was like, oh. And they took me to my room. The moment I got to my room, it was freezing cold. I was like, okay, this is cold. And so I told her, I was like, is there any way you could, change the temperature? And she was like, no. And I was like, she said, just use more blankets. Then when I used the restroom, I saw less than half a roll. And I said, do you not have like a full toilet paper roll. And then that's when she started telling me, you can't trust these girls. I had to give them very minimal. And I just looked at her thinking, okay, but you're opening this program. You know, what do they have to do with toilet paper? And she's like, they steal. Who cares? Who cares if they steal toilet paper? It's just toilet paper. You know, I didn't understand the significance. So then the next day, well, that evening I got to meet the girls. And they wanted to hear my story. And I told them I'm a recovering addict. And they said, oh, how long have you been clean? At that time, I can't believe it's been 3 years. So probably, I told them I got clean 22 years, 23 years. And some of the girls asked me, how'd you do it? And I said, for me, I quit cold turkey. And they're like, really? And I was like, I'm not recommending that to anyone. If you need help, if you need, you know, to wean off of some of the narcotics, you know, whatever helps you to get clean. And I said, I got clean. I quit cold turkey because of my son. And I said, everybody's mission is different. But the one thing that started raising red flags is when she said in front of me and the girls, I don't believe in medication. That's not trauma informed. She said she doesn't believe in taking them to the doctor. That's not okay. So she's also violating HIPAA. She's also discriminating the girls from any medical or mental health treatment. Then the next day, she told me about the farming and all the stuff. And I said, you have all the girls do all these work for how long? And she said, 8 to 10 hours a day. So they get paid. She goes, no, they're not getting paid. And she said, well, I don't like a bunch of freeloaders. And then she would gossip about the girls. She would tell me this girl does this girl does that. And I'm just sitting here thinking, you're supposed to be an advocate. You're supposed to keep confidentiality. You're not even acting as an advocate that actually cares. It's more like you see these girls as a burden rather than, you know, a way to help them and a way to utilize them to help you grow. And then the biggest part that was a red flag to me, other than the fasting, other than forcing them to work, not letting them have seconds. Even she gave me a small bowl and she was announcing no seconds. But when she threw the gala that I was speaking at, there was all these food, but it was only for the guests. None of it was for the girls. So I let some of the girls sneak to a corner and eat. But the sad part is the other girls saw it, so they snitched on her. So at that point, I said, you know what? Then, because I stayed for the weekend. So Sunday, I was planning to leave anyway. So she's like, are you coming to church with me? And I said, no, I'm not coming to church. And she was like, well, if you don't go to church, you're going to go to hell. And I was like, all right. And I was like, but you're not here to judge me. I don't follow you. So Sunday morning, I slept in. Next thing I knew, I started hearing screaming, and I mean screaming. And I was packing up my stuff, getting my suitcase. I walked out of the bedroom. It was a far bedroom. I walked down the hall. I saw all the group of girls sitting in the first room, and they're all bawling their eyes out. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I went to the office. The two girls were talking to Lenora. And yes, I'm going to say her name because I have nothing to hide.
No,
She
it's
was
your
screaming
experience.
at them.
It's your experience with her. You're not telling tales.
She was screaming at them. She said, you're going to go to hell. You are going to fail. You're going to die as an addict. And I said, hold up. What the heck is going on here? And the two girls ran to me. They said, Miss Kim, can you please take us to another sober living? And I said, do you have beds there? They said, yes, because we're not going to run around all day. And they said, you have to have beds there. And they said, yes, they have beds. And I said, then I want to talk to them. And then we all looked at Lenora because she had their phones. And she said, I'm not pulling out their phones. And so I pulled out my phone and I gave it to one of the girls, dialed the number, and I got to talk to them. The lady said the sober house that they wanted to go to was in Pasadena, Texas, and it cost $80 a week. One of the girls had a family cover for her. The other girl, she didn't have anyone. So I was the one that paid $80 so she could go. And when Lenore found out that I was helping them, I kid you not, she screamed and she said, and I said, do you realize this is false imprisonment? And I'm a mandated reporter. I can report you. And her husband, Howard, was in the house. And he said, you need to butt out. And I said, no, you should be holding her accountable. And then the other two girls, they were clenching my arm. The other two girls, not the girls I got to rescue. The other two girls, they were there because of court order. And they were crying. And they said, we're stuck here. We cannot leave. She has our children. And so then I contacted a friend of mine who's also an advocate. And I said, Lenore claims she got training from you. She said, nope, never heard of her. Just because you came to a training as a one-day training does not count as a training. So at that point, as soon as I rescued them, got them out, then her board member, the one that told me about the program, she contacted me and said, Lenora said you kidnapped her girls. I can't kidnap someone that doesn't want to stay. They wanted to leave. Even one of the girls, I'm still in touch with her.
Quick question here.
Sure.
Wanda, one of the comments somebody asked, did you guys have to sign some kind of contract when you went in there, Wanda?
Yes, we did. What do you think?
Well, they just wanted to know what kind of terms did they lay out in the contract?
Well, let me interject here, okay? Nine times, about over 50% of girls that do sign contracts, a lot of them are inundated with drugs, alcohol, they're recovering, they're coming out from it. And a lot of times they come from very vulnerable situations. When I placed my daughter for adoption, they had to wait 48 hours before the morphine was out of my system before I could sign a legal document. Lenore does not do that. She also manipulates and how they sign the contract. And the contract, it'll say we don't charge, but at the same time, if you, and that's the other thing. When I helped two of the girls leave, she started a debt bondage on them, telling them that they owe over $800 and it could be up to a couple of $1,000s. So yes, these girls do sign a contract. However, you have to remember whoever is commenting or asking this question, because I am an advocate and I have seen this happen so many times when vulnerable adults that come into a program and they sign. Let me explain this to you. They are desperate. They are needing a home. They may be running away from an abuser, and they have this much.
Chong, her question is just, she just wanted to know what they put in the contract. Like, what did they put in there that they, like, were forced on the girls? What kind of things were in there is what the inquiry is, They're just trying to figure out what on earth were they, did they try and tie them to?
I will say, pardon me, Chong, I will say the handbook that I had whenever I entered the program, at that time it was a 6-month program, we changed it at least 3 to 4 times before my 6 months was up. So within 6 months, that handbook that I originally signed whenever I entered the program was changed multiple times. And Lenora did not even stick to the rules of that program, because at that time it was a 0 violence for verbal abuse or physical abuse. I was threatened by a lady multiple times for months that she was going to cut my throat in my sleep, stab me in the face with a pencil, pen, or scissors, because I was in charge of giving write-ups because our original house mom had left. And so whenever I'd give a write-up, because she broke one of the handbook rules that this lady had given me and told me that I was supposed to implement, then I was threatened. But she did not protect us. She did not protect me. And whenever I brought it to her attention multiple times that I don't feel safe with this lady, she's like, well, do you really think your sister is going to kill you? You really think she's going to do that? This is that psychological, spiritual abuse manipulation. that she's trying to convince me that I'm not acting in love and that this girl's not going to do. I don't know this woman. That's what I told her. I don't know her. You don't know her. We're just now meeting her. So yes, I fully believe she's going to do exactly what she says she's going to do because everyone in the house is scared of her. I've got a journal note right here from March 23rd, 2016, where I wrote everybody in the house was scared of this girl. Okay. Yeah. That went on for months. And so the rule book changed. I handed Lenora's rule book to her multiple times within my 8 months that I was there. And I told her, you need to throw this out because you don't follow one rule in this book. You don't need to have a rule book.
Did you keep the rule book? Wanda, did you keep a copy of your rule book?
I have to look. I've got a lot of stuff that I've been covering. It's been 9-10 years ago. I am uncovering a lot of stuff. So I am looking for all of this stuff.
That would be great to eventually find. Go ahead,
I
Chong.
do have a copy. I had someone sent me a copy of a contract she did send to all the residents. So I have a copy of that. I can send that. Also, I've seen her 990. She has not filed since 2023.
Oh, wow. And Hailey, let's hear from you just a bit. Your mom is here. She's in the comments, sweetheart. So just letting you know, because she was making a comment about that they didn't even provide toilet paper for the family members, that you had to save yours to, if your family came to visit.
Wow.
And you having family was unusual, correct?
Correct. Most women in there, they didn't have any family support. Their family had, burned the bridge with them for whatever reason it could have been. I was fortunate enough to have family support, and Lenora did not like that at all because she couldn't control me and be my mother per se. But yeah, that was probably one of the most humiliating things. Was having to beg for a roll of toilet paper or beg for, feminine products like pads or tampons. Whenever we would run out of toilet paper, it might be a week, it might be 2 weeks, and we were criticized for how fast we were using toilet paper. When we had toilet paper, when we had visitors, our visitors had to use our roll as well. So that took away from us being able to have any.
Your mom says also you were never left alone with family, and phone calls were monitored with your family.
Yes, because they wanted to control the narrative. They didn't want me speaking out as to what really happened. So I was having to speak in code, hoping that they would catch on to what I was putting down. And luckily they did.
Yeah. And then your mom, she says, we had to talk in code.
Yes, we did. We did, very much so. And a lot of the times when we were on the phone, Lenora was standing right there. I'm pretty sure she had the phone calls recorded too, because she would ask me questions about what we were talking about. But a lot of my answers would be yes and no because I couldn't elaborate on things.
Wait a minute. Your mom said they tried to exorcise you?
Yes, yeah. So
oh my.
They obviously there was a lot going on, and it could be spiritual, could not be, who knows, but they tried to convince me like I had multiple personalities and that they were caused by like multiple demons, and all I could think of was like, if I had multiple personalities, I would know, because people who spoke out about having multiple personalities have spoken out about how it felt like you were sitting in, a circle of chairs, and one personality would come out and come in the middle at a time, and everyone else was kind of shut down in silence. And that's nothing I've ever experienced.
Yeah. And Chong, that was one thing she was upset with you, correct?
Yes. One thing I want to let people know while we're on this podcast, we are looking for anyone, especially attorneys, that will take our case pro bono, or one of my friends called it conditional, where we don't pay anything until we win, and then they get a percentage.
But explain why you're looking for an attorney.
First of all, we've all been served for defamation, a defamation suit. Number two is that the girls are being harassed And then there's also where Lenore will also, if a girl wants to leave, she will actually drop the girl off in the middle of the night in an area where it's high traffic. So you're actually putting that victim at additional risk. And there was a post where another person that was supporting Lenore saying, well, advocates can drop them off wherever. No, you cannot. If you had quality training, you are only supposed to drop them off at a safe place. You have to make sure that's a safe place. And so, but I'm basically calling a call to action because this is ridiculous. This is not human trafficking. I mean, this is not rescue. This is not a ministry. This is trafficking. This is abuse. And there's far more organizations like this that are doing this. And that we're not here to defame anyone's character. We're holding Lenora Purvis and Heaven's Army accountable. And now Heaven's Army, or Lenore Purvis, is expanding her so-called ministry to Massachusetts or Maine. And she also somehow got a certificate to be a life coach. So please be aware, do not donate to this program. And the other thing is, I want to call out the legislators in the county. Why are you looking the other way unless you are involved? Yeah. And there have been a lot of money exchange between the nonprofit and the people and the elected officials in Liberty County and Montgomery County. And so I'm asking the state of Texas, and I also sent a complaint to the Department of Justice. They did give us a case number, but we don't know when they're going to pop up again and say, hey, now it's your turn. And so we need
Katrina
something.
made a comment. If you can get a copy of the contract, because she says not many attorneys will take a case without at least reading the contract, so that they can see exactly what they're claiming. So that would be a help, because Katrina works with attorneys.
The only thing I remember about the contract is that she listed some rules which were vague, and then she said it was like basically giving permission to post our pictures on Facebook. And so that's pretty much all I remember from the contract.
There wasn't anything in there about not working or not getting paid?
Nope, nothing in there about even working. Just surrender, obedience, and service. And no caffeine.
No caffeine. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, Katrina said the Department of Justice is worthless in Texas because she's had experience with the state. Her aunt was deleted. We'll put it that way, because YouTube doesn't like certain words. I'm sorry.
I do have a copy of a paper from one of the girls that exited when her family came to get her, and where she says she doesn't charge, but it's like over $2,000 that she suddenly owes Heaven's Army. I do have a copy of that exit paperwork that
if you can email that to me, and we will get some of this together and have Katrina look it over and see if maybe she can help us.
Let me get a release from the person that has that paperwork, and we'll get it.
Because you see, that's what an advocate does, is she contacts the person and gets a release. You don't just go saying stuff about people.
Right.
Yep.
Let's see. Another question I wanted to ask about one of the girls. What's the thing with the fasting? Who wants to talk about that?
Well, it was forced fasting. You're not allowed to eat anything, or I think we could have water whenever I was there. We could have water, but that was it. No food. And it was pretty much just prayer and fasting. She just made us fast. It was not an option. And
for how long?
For me, I never went past a day. But, I was also one of the paying, like Hailey, I paid to be there. So I think I could bend the rules a little more than some people. Plus, the pastor of the church was my ex's cousin. So but I think the other ladies would fast for like 3 days.
Okay. But Hailey, what was
water only or
water only?
Oh my.
Okay. And Hailey?
So when I was there, we were only told to fast one day. It was Tuesdays. We had to fast breakfast and lunch, and we had a very, very small dinner that night. And they consisted of like old leftovers that, they didn't want to throw out because, the whole rule there, no wasting. And so I wasn't given any leniency, even though, I was paid. I was up to date on my payments thanks to my parents. But yeah, I mean, God forbid, you saved a peppermint and you ate a peppermint on your fasting day.
Okay. And Wanda, what was your experience with that?
We were only made to fast for 1 day a week. And that was more towards the end of my time period there. I was only there 8 months. At that time, it was a 6-month program. But we were also mandated to fast one time because she said we were full of vanity and pride and selfishness and gluttony. So we were not allowed to wear makeup and do our hair for a whole week because we needed to fast those demons away. And so that was weird because in 2 weeks later, she was telling me that I wasn't dressed professional enough and that I needed to dress more professional. But at that time, we were working at the warehouse that she had in New Caney, and it didn't have air conditioner, and it was 100-something degrees in the middle of May and June. And I said, I feel like I'm dressed appropriately for this time of work. I'm in, shorts and a shirt, and I don't want to go and dress up and put my hair and makeup on if I'm going to sweat it off in an hour. I'm not sitting in the air conditioner all day long. So I'm dressed appropriately for the job. So fasting for gluttony and spirit of vanity, that psychological and spiritual abuse that people need to be aware of, it's very heavy. And people need to pay attention what's going on, because that does a lot of mental damage to people.
Yeah. I mean, this would be classified as almost cultish,
Cultish, that's what everyone said.
Correct.
I don't know if one of you girls want to jump in, but I know there was a lot of fat shaming going on, and I'll call it that. Not that any of you was even close to fat, but she would shame you and make you put food back off of your plates. But any of you girls can jump in because
that was me.
That's part of it.
Okay,
yeah.
Stephanie.
So a lady from the church, she had decided to do something nice for all of us ladies. She had a pool in her backyard, and so she invited us over to swim for a few hours, and then she made us fajitas. And so after we were done swimming, we sat at her outside table, and she brought us this big old pan with like beef and chicken fajitas. And so we all made us a plate, and I probably had 3 fajitas on my plate. And just like everybody else, we just had like some fajitas on our plate. Well, she showed up. She wasn't there all day long. And then she just then showed up and was like, y'all are too fat to be eating all of that food. She said two each, just 2 each, and put the rest back on that, in the pan. She made us put our food back in the container that this woman had made, because we were too fat to have more than 2 fajitas, which maybe 2 fajitas was a lot, but just calling us fat. I think everybody that night went home basically in tears. We were all broke up about that night, because like I literally just got out of prison, and I know I'm a little overweight, but I wasn't nowhere close to fat. Like, so yeah, that's.
Do we know what? Oh, okay. I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. What was the motivation for her saying that to you when she wasn't? The food wasn't causing her any kind of financial. It wasn't hers.
Actually, I will tell you exactly what it was. So after we all put our food back in the tray, she put the cover over it, and she handed it to her daughter and told her to go put it in the car.
Oh.
Yeah.
People like this. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd like to chime in on the food control portion. Like, That especially, but everything she did was about control. So that was her way of
Yeah.
controlling
Okay.
us, what we could and could not do.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. And she also served them expired meat that made the girls get sick. And when they did get sick, she denied them medical care. That's why one of the survivors I was supposed to jump on, and maybe that was my mistake. I forgot to add her email. She ended up going to the ER, and they even said that it was malnutrition. And I actually have all the paperwork for that.
We'll do another episode, and,
Yep.
and you can bring her on, Chong.
I also
'Cause I
have,
think
go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead, Hailey. What were you going to say, sweetie?
I have something about that too. So I was there very early on. I was made their kitchen leader, which meant I was in charge of cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner for everyone in the house. And I mean, some of the labels were dating back, years and years. Some of the labels you couldn't even read, and so we just kind of made a joke about it and saying, "Hey, what's for dinner?" I don't know, mystery meat. When I got out, I was actually diagnosed with H. pylori, and I had to go through intense treatment for that. And we're suspecting it was caused by the expired meats and the bacteria that had grown in the expired meats.
Yep.
Oh,
If you
Lord.
have that paperwork that you were diagnosed with H. pylori, please send it to me because we can make a case out of this because this is not okay.
I'm going to work on
Here's
that tomorrow.
Okay, because here's the thing. One thing I do know, when you open up a nonprofit, even the health department has to do health checks. That's why I'm wondering what is going on with the system. What is going on with our jurisdiction? And here's the other thing. One of the girls, she actually contacted the Texas Ranger. But when I had a meeting with the Texas Ranger, I asked him, what are you doing with this case? He said that the DA, Bergman, who is also involved in Heaven's Army and Lenore's demise, he said, well, she was the one who told me to investigate. And then I thought, okay, but Texas Ranger is a hierarchy of the county. Why would you need her permission? So I went and double checked and contacted my friends in HSI and FBI. And I said, hey, we got a Texas Ranger. They're like, great. Now you'll finally get justice. And they said, well, he said that the DA gave him permission. And that's when they're like, no, do not talk to him. Do not share anything with him because now he's compromised. And I later found out that he was also the Texas Ranger is actually very close to the DA, and the DA is also very close with Heaven's Army. So we actually have a very corrupt system. And that's why I'm calling, I'm doing a call to action to our state and even to anyone outside of Texas. But because I know some places, I have a friend of mine, he has a Texas state license and he also has California. I have a friend that's in New Mexico and also does Texas cases. So we're asking for a call to action. We're looking for anyone that's going to take our case. I compiled as much information and evidence, especially when it comes to money. I've even made reports I even contacted another Texas Ranger that's in Austin. We have yet to hear back from them. I had a lady that said she was willing to do private investigation pro bono. I've yet to hear back from her. So a lot of this is just a bunch of waiting game. But at the same time, we're being served for a defamation suit, and so they're putting down, they want to sue us for $1 million. Don't worry about the $1 million. But here's the thing. The girls are all scared of the defamation suit because anything that has to do with legal, they're afraid. And I want to be able to say, hey, we need something. We need to have, I'm not afraid because I'm like, you want to have a defamation suit? Let's go. Let's open up all the books. Let's look at everything in your record. Because what they don't realize,
I think one thing she doesn't realize is a defamation suit means that you get to list. She has to go to and all of a sudden the word just left my mind.
She has to prove that we lied.
Well, no. What I'm trying to say is, what is it? Deposition. She has to go to a deposition. Once you get an attorney, they get to ask her questions. She has to give answers.
Yep,
And
they
if
haven't done
I'm
it.
not mistaken, she opened up herself to be scrutinized for that financially, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And
So-
that's why she's suing us $1 million. But here's the thing, let me tell you, because I showed the paper I got served, I showed it to all my FBI friends and even their attorneys, and they were shocked that the judge, whoever the judge was that signed the defamation suit, allowed it to happen because she had no grounds to sue us.
Right.
So that's when he said, you know what? This is a corrupt system. You have to get outside of the system. But we don't know who.
Who's the judge?
Chap Kane.
Chong, is that the judge that we're going before on this case?
Well, he
No,
was voted
that's
out.
the
Terri,
So if-
is it?
As of right now, yes. I know the first hearing was in his courtroom. So part of us haven't been served yet. Not sure what's going on with that, but okay. But I know that is the presiding judge at this time. He was voted out, which will be in January. But I know that he right now, as we speak, is the presiding judge.
And
Wanda, what's his connection?
Yeah, hasn't she donated to his campaign in the past?
Yes.
Yes,
Which is a
using
conflict
the
of
Heaven's
interest.
Army name.
Yeah.
So I don't feel safe going before this man, because or the DA, because she's been friends with the district attorney Bergman for all these years. She's been friends with the chief over there, which he says he don't know that he has human trafficking in our town. Are you kidding me? You've been supporting this human trafficking
program
Operation.
for 10 years. Yeah. And so, this is what we're talking about, the corruption that's over here in Liberty County. There's no way around it because everybody's connected. Everybody's connected. We help outside.
So Hailey, that when you were in the kitchen, how many times, if ever, did the health inspector come and do any kind of inspection at all?
None at all. None at all.
Okay.
Nope.
Well, that should be something that probably is in your defense, for you have any of you been deposed yet?
No, not yet. But here's the thing. Okay. The health department, anything that has to do with Liberty County, Montgomery County, and even Polk County, they all run in circles. There's not going to be a health inspection going to Heaven's Army because they all back each other up. So we need someone outside of all these 3 counties to come and serve and bring a health inspector. But if they bring in a health inspector, you better make sure they do an unannounced visit. Because I guarantee you, if they say we're doing a health inspection and we're going to plan it on this day, do not... you better best believe that Lenore is going to send all these girls to go and clean from top to bottom, clean out any expired meat.
Yeah.
So if they're going to do any house inspection, they better do it when she's off guard. And she's got a couple of mansions. How did she do that? And she doesn't use grants. So where's this money actually going to? Who is it serving?
Where is she getting the money?
Well, we know where she's getting the money because the people in both Polk County, Liberty County, and Montgomery County, like I said, they all run in circles. They're all supporting her. Why they're supporting her, I don't know. But the thing is, no one is checking her books. I would like to find a private investigator that can also check her books.
Is she providing labor from the girls to
other people
that she could be getting paid for?
Not just other people, and not just other people, but also on the farm, making them work, everything.
Okay.
When I was there, she gave me a conflicting answer. She said they don't charge. Then why did you give these 2 girls I helped rescue a debt bondage.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Okay, so in 2018, I believe it was 2017, I started a cleaning business. This was after I left the program because I was still connected with some of the ladies that left the program. And I knew that they didn't have any resources when they left the program. There was no skills. So whenever they left the program, they were literally back in the same spot where they began, and nothing, they spent however many months in this program and wasn't being able to succeed. So I started a cleaning business, and then was hiring some of these girls. I was paying them $17 an hour so that they can go and clean houses. And she started a cleaning business right after that. And so the girls were sent to go clean houses, and she was collecting money. They were paying the ministry, not the girls. So I do know that because I witnessed it.
Okay.
Oh.
And so, I mean, one thing that the community can do is look up if anyone's got an email for the Attorney General that you can get to us, or because this is going to have to go probably statewide to say that as a community that we are concerned citizens and that there is some major corruption going on and that something needs to be established because, you know, people
One
are
of my friends
working.
told me, don't go to Ken Paxton because right now there is an investigation of human trafficking that he's involved. I wrote to Ken Paxton. Their office wrote me back saying we did not find anything disturbing about Heaven's Army. And that's when I gave up.
Okay.
And then a year later, that's when one of the ladies who knew I was going after Lenora, she said, Chong, she said, I don't know if this is good news or bad news, but that's when she introduced me to Wanda. And then Wanda introduced me to the other girls. And then I met 5 more. And then but all the ladies, they were like, we don't know what to do. We're just kind of like sitting ducks. And everyone was giving wrong information. So I said, you know what? I'm going to put out a press release. So that's how that started. I put out a press release for investigation on Heaven's Army. And guess what? Now, if you Google Heaven's Army, it'll say my name.
Yep.
Chong Kim
It does.
Yeah, because even my friend in California, she said when she typed in Heaven's Army, it says Chong Kim is put out a press release against Heaven's Army.
Yeah.
Katrina brought out a good point here. I mean, suing for slander, libel, or defamation brings a civil suit in a state court and alleges that under the laws of that state, the person who brought about the lawsuit was damaged by the conduct. Now, how can she prove that? How is that?
Yeah.
She would have to prove that.
She claims that since we started speaking out, or since actually this last year, whenever another person started speaking out and we all chimed in and defended her, that she has lost a lot of donations and it's caused problems in her life. That's what that's what her defamation suit is for.
Boo-hoo if she's not living to the lifestyle that she wants.
Well, the thing is like I said earlier, since she's brought this lawsuit, she has opened her books wide open.
Yep.
Listen, even her attorney her attorney's wife used to volunteer for Heaven's Army doing our hair. They cutting and coloring our hair.
And I'd like to add something to that too. I remember being in the program and there were only 2 ladies there in the program whenever I came in. There were more after I went in, but they got like their haircuts done, but I was told, oh, you can't do anything because you're too new right now. And we don't have like sponsorships for you. And I'm sitting here like, but you have a lot of donations that you can dig into. And then I remember, so I had dyed my hair all these different colors when I was in addiction. And I wanted to go back to my natural hair color because I had made a true transformation, not because of the program, but because of a couple of the counselors that were volunteering at the time. And they thought like, yeah, that would be a great idea. Get your hair back your natural color, get, back to feeling you before your addiction took you over. So I had asked my mom to help me get, the cheapest box of hair dye from Dollar General, just, to get my hair back to my natural color. And when that was brought to me, that was withheld to me during my program, a $5 box of hair dye, because other people wanted to dye their hair too that had already gotten the opportunity to do that. And so she withheld a $5 box of hair dye from me when she was spending over $500 on her hair and her appearance. And whenever I left the program, I had to remind her, like, hey, can I have my box of hair dye? And she goes, oh yeah, I would have given it to you sooner had I not forgotten about it. Forgotten.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just the abuse that she put on these girls.
So yes, whenever I was in the program, and she made us make out a list of our hopes and dreams, and I had wanted to work with women whenever I got out the program in the future and stuff. And so during one of her mentorship training meetings with me, when she told me she set up her ministry, and she told me that her board members at that time was her husband, and one of her other family members, and that she use the ministry money to get her hair done, her nails and her pedicures and manicures. She paid for her car. She paid for her clothes, because people don't want to donate to somebody that looks slumpy, and you need to look professional. But we were not provided, and these are one of the false advertisements that I had went into the program. She advertised that she had licensed counseling and therapists for us. We did not have that. And whenever our house mom left and I became a leader in the program, and I felt I was in a position to now ask, why have we been here for 4 months and none of us have received any licensed counseling and the things that you have told us? And she's like, well, we don't have no money for that. If y'all want that, then you need to pray for that. And if God wants you to have that, then he'll provide that. And so, but so that's that psychological abuse. Again, it goes back to that. And people need to realize that this is still going on. I was there in 2015 to 2016. And the girls that are just recently left last year that we started speaking out against this is still going on for 10 years. Yeah. This is the same mentality.
And Terri, the bad thing about this is that they're masking it with religion. Have some of the girls now had a hard time even looking at religion because of what they've gone through, Terri?
Absolutely. Several of them that I've talked with have had real struggles to where they didn't trust any churches whatsoever. They, and a lot of the pastors are tight with Lenora, and they're just now coming into to start to open their eyes a little bit. I think some of them are still not. But these girls have had a really rough time coming to find out who God is, and looking for truth, looking for their own truth. And, the biggest thing I can tell them is get in your Bible and read it for yourself. And that's the only way you're going to find your truth in anything, is if you go looking for it yourself instead of trusting, what everybody else is trying to tell you. So they're really struggling with that. And that was one of the things Lenora tried. So the only thing that she has against me that she supposedly has in this defamation lawsuit is part of an email that was leaked. That was a private email that I sent to somebody, and it was leaked. And she took a bottom portion of it where I did call Heaven's Army demonic, and I stand by that. I don't apologize for what I said, but she took that, and my address, my phone number, my cell phone number even was all on the bottom of that email. And when she got it, she called my pastor, not me. She called my pastor and involved him in it. And he called me and he was like, so what is this about? I told him, I said, I can't tell you, I have a confidentiality to these ladies. I was like, but all of these ladies that don't even know each other coming together and having shared stories, they all can't be lying. And I said, and you know what bothers me even more is the fact that Lenore never called me, that she felt the need to call my pastor. And he said, you're absolutely right. He said, I'm going to call and tell her if she wants to know something, that she's got your phone number and that she needs to call you. And
Yep.
she's saying that all of these community organizations are suddenly against her, but she went to the board that shares an office with me and spoke of the whole thing. I've never spoke about it to anybody in public, especially in the professional realm. She went to these boards and she exposed it to them, and they came and asked me if I could work with her. And I said, absolutely. I said, she's never spoken to me about any of this. I know who she is. And I said, but no. And I said, and by the way, how did you even know about this? And it was a pastor and a deacon that came. And they said, well, she sat in the board meeting and told us all about it, which was a chamber board meeting.
So in other words, she defamed you?
Yeah, basically, but she's trying to like say that we're spreading this, but in fact, she's the one who is actually out there spreading this. She's the one who's sharing this with the public.
Yeah. Well, make sure those two people that came to you get their names and their address, so when you get an attorney, they can be subpoenaed. Because, she's the one spreading it.
Because you have real good grounds for return defamation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Stephanie, what was the situation? You said when you first got there, you had some clothes that you had brought with you, right?
Yes. So I got out of prison and literally like, okay, so you can buy shirts and shorts and, undergarments on commissary. Well, I just remembered, I was like, I'm not going to have nothing. So I bought like 3 or 4 shirts, 3 or 4 sets of undergarments, socks and all that. And I had books and things. And whenever I got there, they were like, you can burn that. Let's go. Cause like I'm an outdoors kind of person. So, I had convinced them to let me, cause they had a fire pit. So I was like, let's start a fire. And then she was like, well, or, one of the leaders, the main leaders was like, well, I think that you should burn all of the stuff that you have and say goodbye to the prison, say goodbye to the past. And so yeah, like I ended up having to burn all of that stuff that I didn't even use it, because I was like, I'm going to save this so it's nice and clean, whenever I get out, I'll have something. And I ended up burning it, never using it. And then afterwards, I was made to everything that I wore there, everything that I got from that place, I purchased with my money from their boutique and from the center. I had to purchase my clothes. I had to purchase the things that I used there, my makeup, everything that I used there, I purchased.
But gee, they're a nonprofit. What's the deal?
Yeah, there was a few exceptions. Like we had a shared closet that everybody could go and get an outfit out of, but we had to put it back. So I mean, I did get to wear other clothes, don't get me wrong, but anything that was mine, I purchased, which what happened turned out to be like a whole tote or, suitcase full of stuff. So I wasn't really down with sharing. I didn't like to share clothes. I, kind of weird about that. But yeah, so I thought that was
you shouldn't have to share clothes. You shouldn't.
Yeah.
And
Hailey, your mom said that when you got so ill that you couldn't get out of bed, you were told you had to write Bible verses.
Yeah, that was a big part of the spiritual abuse. So more recently, I was diagnosed with some autoimmune disease stuff. But the doctor was asking, like, well, how long have you been having these symptoms? And it was, around the time that I was at Heaven's Army, where I was begging to go to a doctor and be seen and figure out what was going on. It got to a point where, like, I was just throwing up all the time. And I was told that I was inducing my own vomit. And I'm like, excuse me, but I'm afraid of throwing up, like genuinely afraid of it. So why would I induce it myself? And then she would tell me, oh, you're just faking it, making noises. And so finally I handed her a trash bag. I was like, would you like to see it for yourself? And she got all pissy and stuff about it. I was like, I don't care at this point. Like, what are you going to do? Punish me? But there was one or a few mornings that I just could not get out of bed. Like I was so drained, so fatigued. I was in pain all over. And the alarm clock was going off, and she had noticed I was the only one that had not gotten up. And so she made me write, it was like over 150 Bible verses on what it's like being a sloth and lazy. And then she made me teach an hour-long class about why you shouldn't, have the attributes of slothness and whatnot. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So humiliation too.
Yeah.
Big on humiliation.
Oh, yeah.
Stephanie, what was the situation with your children? Because she was not letting you contact your children, correct?
Well, that's part of the thing. When you go in there, you are cut off from everybody and everything. You can't have any contact with your family, your kids, or anybody in the outside world. You just aren't allowed to. And for me, I think it was 3 months. It's been 10 years almost. So it's kind of rusty, but I think it was like 3 months before I could even have a visit with them. And, yeah, you're like pretty much not able to talk to your family and friends. I do remember that it took me a while to find my mom, and I had to wait until I already had graduated the program and I was still there, before I could even speak to my mom and kind of tell her where I was and how I was doing, and kind of. But whenever I told her about it, she told me that I was part of a cult, and which
But
is
tell them
crazy.
what your mom said when she finally saw you, because
Well, so my mother was on drugs, alcohol, and she was experienced homelessness, and she thought I was dead because nobody had told her that I went to prison, and she hadn't heard from me in so long. And I guess she went through a period of grieving my death, that I was still alive, but grieving that
right.
she turned to Jesus, and she actually, for the first time since I've been alive, had her own house. She was like off drugs, off alcohol. She had turned her whole life around. And so yeah, I finally got to have a mom for a few years, but yeah, so she thought I was dead
Yeah.
because I
I
wasn't
mean,
able to talk to
and now your mom has passed on now, but you had a couple of years with her, but
Mhm.
it wasn't because of them. Here they kept you from your mother to where you could have
her. Yes,
at least
it
let
wasn't
her
until after
know,
I left.
so she thought her daughter had passed away, and can't imagine the trauma she went through dealing with that. Wanda, what was some of the did you have any situation with your children, or do you have kids?
Yes, I do. I left my children with their dad, and right now they are blaspheming and twisting my testimony, saying that I did not have custody of my children when I went into her program, and that she helped me gain custody back of my children, which is a lie. I had full custody of my children. And I went into the program because I would filed for the divorce from my ex-husband because he tried to kill me twice in 2013. And I filed for divorce in 2014. She told me this is one of the reasons I was compelled to go to her program, because she said that she was partnered with Lone Star Legal Aid and that she was going to help me finalize my divorce. And she was going to get counseling for myself and for my children. None of that happened. She actually convinced me this is part of the spiritual abuse that people need to pay attention to. Her and the pastor of our church at that time convinced me to go back to that husband, to give God a chance, because God had turned my life around and he could do the same in that man's heart too. I had been with that man for 17 years at that time. And I know a wolf in sheep's clothing, and that's what he was. And that's what I told him. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He's lying because I'm his possession. We didn't get together because we were married and we loved each other. I was his possession the whole time. And so they convinced me to go back to that. I literally started over. I felt like I was in the twilight zone. When I left that program, I went back to everything, the same thing that I left from. And I felt like I was regressed even further backwards. So the part of the spiritual abuse that people need to pay attention to, because they say, well, you don't have to stay there. You can leave the program. Well, this is what I was trained, that this is God's book of your life. And your life is written in this book. And he knew you were going to be here in Heaven's Army at this moment in time, and that it was going to be a 6-month long program. And if you walk out of this program before you graduate at this 6-month program, then you are walking out of God's will for your life. And I was wanting so bad to have something different in my life, that I was convinced if I left that program, I was walking out of God's will for my life, and I was going back to the pits of hell where I came from, and worse things were going to happen. This is the spiritual abuse that people were told. I know this because I was told that, and I was trained to tell that to other women. I held my hands just like that and told them that. And so, also, the spiritual abuse is medication. Okay, I took an ecstasy pill in November 2009. It shocked my nervous system. Has not been correct since then. I have anxiety attacks, severe anxiety attacks. They shut my body down. And whenever I went in that program, I was that year I was seeing a neurologist. She told me I was having brain seizures and all these other things. I was sick in the program, and needed to see a gastroenterologist and all these other things. But sorry, I lost my thought. It's just so much.
The medication.
But
medication.
the abuse of medication. So she says that medication is pharmakia. Even if you take an ibuprofen, she says that that it's demonic and you're allowing demons to enter you. Okay, this is what I was taught by this lady. I believe that. It took me 9 years to overcome this kind of mentality, because for the past 2.5 years, I've been in real trauma therapy, to where I can now convince myself that it's okay to take medication for PTSD and anxiety, because I do have those issues. And it's not that I'm full of demons. It's because I was in a life full of trauma, and I need to learn how to work through it. And I took drugs that caused chemical imbalances, and there are medications that can help that. And taking medications is not demonic, and this is one of the things that people need to understand, that this is the teachings that she teaches. This is a false teaching. You can take medication that can help you get back on the right track, and it can help correct your chemical imbalances. And I know Jesus can heal. I know he can. But we also have a wonderful medical system that can help in those areas as well. And trauma therapy can help too. Real licensed trauma therapy, not trauma informed therapy. These certificates that she has, you can go online right now. I can go on right now online and pay $37 to get this trauma informed therapy certificate. Okay, that does not certify me to medical and tell people to stop taking medicines.
Well, trust me, we have a therapist, that's what she goes by, but she is a real therapist in our community. We also have Dr. Rachel, who is a psychologist. So they would both tell you the same thing. You have to just stop and reason that God wants people to use their brains. And if he made people able to use their brains to become doctors, to help people, for therapy, because of the terrible things that we all deal with in life, that just doesn't even make sense. It just doesn't even make sense. And the abuse that they were putting on you, I know, Stephanie, you were supposed to get back child support, right?
Yes, I was.
And what happened to that?
So, she says she's going to represent you in court and everything. Well, she had me so convinced. Part of our Bible studies and part of our classes, we're supposed to forgive and even forgive our debtors. But really, I think it was like more so she wanted me to stay forever. But so I went to this child support by my ex and his wife to just, because I'm fixing to start owing child support. And she said that if I would erase the 80 grand or whatever of child support, that I would not have to pay child support and I can stay and help as long as I wanted. And anyway, that's a lie. I've been paying twice what he's paid ever in his life for child support for the last however long I've had this, almost 7-8 years now. So that was all a lie. It was just mismanagement of, like, I was convinced that's what I was supposed to do. You're trying to stay in God's good grace and, prove to God that you're for him. You know what I'm saying? And that was just part of it. It was very, it's very disheartening, but yeah. So I signed away $80,000 worth of child support.
Do you still have that contract?
No, but I'm sure the Attorney General does. What do you mean, what contract?
That you signed away the child support.
Because there could be
We
something
did it
in
in
there
the
where
office.
she took. It doesn't matter. They have to have a copy.
Yeah.
They're supposed to give you a copy. Do you have the case number?
I can get all that. I'm sure.
Yeah,
the child
get
support
all the
number, yeah.
information.
Get
a
all
copy
the
of it.
information. Yeah, because I guarantee you, if she told you to sign away, I guarantee you that she got a buy-in.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't so much that. It was that's a decision that I had been coerced by Donnie and Rona, not by her. I just did it based on her teaching. Like
Donnie and Rona.
the forgiveness of
The
debt.
The ex. But
And
the problem
then
was your ex-husband's cousin is her minister, right?
yes.
So it's all connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
So you just wonder if maybe she made the teaching, convinced, kind of put it in your head to do this. Did somehow she get a cut? We don't know.
You may not.
I don't know about that,
That's
but I
why
do
we
know
know.
Allegedly.
Whenever I came back
Allegedly.
to the center that day and I told her what happened, she acted like I was so stupid. But the thing was, she promised that she was going to be there and advocate for me and actually support me in court, and she wasn't there. She
That's
did
why I
not.
want to see the contract.
That was
I
part
still
of
want to see the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was upset, because she wasn't there, you signed it away thinking you were doing what was right based on her teachings, and that upset her because she wasn't there to say no.
Yeah, she basically made me out like I was so stupid for doing that, but she didn't. She dropped the ball. She didn't go to my cases like she did other people's.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's just part of some of the things that have been going on. Terri, are there any other things that come to mind that you've witnessed?
That I've
coming to you.
Yeah, so I see a lot of the same things. They talk about being starved, literally being able to. They would give a 1 cup measuring cup, and that's how much food they could have at each meal was that one cup. And sometimes they might only eat iceberg lettuce the whole day. They get 3 1-cup servings of iceberg lettuce, or one time it was tater tots. And they come out of there and they're severely malnutrition. Triggers. A lady that got sent back to prison by a parole officer for eating a piece of ice after working outside all day long.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because she called her parole officer and told her that she wasn't cooperating, and they sent her back to prison.
I've been told that by other girls too. And the other thing is, some of the girls that do know that this is a toxic environment, but they have nowhere to go. They don't have family. There's not another shelter. And that's why Terri and I are working for her to create a nonprofit and a home for the girls, so that way they have a healthy alternative.
Yeah. We need things beyond emergency shelters. As emergency shelters are absolutely needed, but many of those shelters, I work in this industry. This is what I do. It's a passion, but it's also a job for me. And I see many shelters that are 30-day shelters. They got 30 days. Well, listen, you're coming out of an abusive relationship. You can't get your life together in 30 days. You barely have time to sneeze in 30 days. you're still trying to figure out if you're safe in that emergency shelter in 30 days. You know, so we need something that can be more long term, that where people can actually get the help they need, that the resources are there for them, that, you know, we have counselors that, you know, are counselors. They're not just, you know, getting a degree off the internet and saying, "Hey, I'm a counselor." You know,
Yeah.
we need people. We need people who put their heart into it, because advocacy isn't something that you're ever going to do to get rich off of. It's
No.
not anything you're ever going to do, because I'm telling you, I have more people that dislike me now than I ever have in my whole life. You know, and that's okay. I'm not out here to be popular, but I'll be the one to stand there for you, and I'll be the one to look law enforcement in the face and tell them that they're wrong. I've been in the DA's office and actually fought with the DA and told him this is the biggest show I've ever seen in my life. You know, I'll be the one that stands there beside of you and hugs you through whatever it is. And then I always tell people I'm like a boxing coach. Like, you go out there and fight, and you come back in the corner, and I give you more of what you need and send you back out to fight. And you come back to the corner and you get more of what you need, and I send you back out to fight. That's the best way I can describe advocacy, is like, you're their person who their coach is going to be there no matter what. No matter what they do, no matter what they say, you know, you're their no matter what person. And these girls, they're hurting. They come out of this program and they're in bad shape. They're hurting. They don't know which way to go. And the corruption that goes with it is absolutely it's unbelievable, you know. The things that you hear, and I don't want to tell anybody else's story, you know.
No.
But it is stuff that would absolutely shake you to your core. Stephanie, you still here, Steph?
Nope, I think we lost her.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know she'll be okay with me telling you this, but she had actually won a van from a church that, she hadn't been out of the program very long, and she'd won a van, and Lenora showed up there, and she was like showing them the van and so excited because she had transportation, and Lenora told her that she better leave the van alone because I had demons in it.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, that manipulation, like, they're like, couldn't even be happy for these girls to be getting anywhere in life.
See, that's what I'm having a problem with, is that they cover this in faith.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they call it a ministry.
Yep.
And anybody that is supporting an organization that hides behind these things and makes up their own rules, you need to do some self-reflection in a mirror,
Yeah.
Yep.
because that's not the teachings of the Bible. When Jesus fed all those people with the bread and the fishes, he wasn't charging. There
No.
was
Yep.
there was no charge. This is hypocrisy,
And
Mhm.
you know.
she parades these girls to these churches and forces them to tell their testimony, tells them to cry because people give more when they cry. I mean, it's
It's a
manipulation
performance.
through and through. Yeah. And
Yep.
it's forced. They don't have options that they can't do it. And if she tells them to cry on stage, they better cry on stage. And they're confused and they're hurt, and that's what it's the spiritual side of it is. And people look at that and they think she's just doing such an amazing things for these girls, just such amazing things. And when you see the backside of it and you see the people, not the performance, you
Right.
know what's going on. And that's where the problem lies.
And I'll add to the whole, if you don't cry on stage, you know, if you didn't cry
Right.
on stage when she told you to, I mean, when you got back, she would give you a reason to cry.
hmm
Mm.
She reminds me so much of my mom, because my mom was the exact same way. I grew up Catholic, and I remember everyone at church thought me and my sisters were the most well behaved. Well, that's because we didn't want our butt to be beaten, you know, because my mother would give
Yeah.
us that look, and we're like, 'cause we knew what that meant. And I always tell people today, when you see kids, you know, whether it's a church or a public area, and they don't act like kids, and they're very well mannered and sitting still, that is not normal. Children should be laughing, enjoying themselves, cutting out, running around. Yes, it's annoying, but that's what normal is.
Doc can tell you I can't even be quiet when we're in church.
Yeah. Well, when you think about all the kids that are having issues like this, and the I hate this label. I just hate this label. They label kids as runaways. And I hate that.
I can't stand it either.
But you look at that in a person, a kid that runs away, multiple times. They need to be looking at something here. Maybe it's not the kid.
Yeah.
They're running from something.
Yeah, because I mean, I'll say there probably are a few of those kids that are, a little bit like that. But mostly, like Doc says, they're running from something.
Mm-hmm.
Something's not right. And it might not even be abuse. Maybe they're in such poverty that the kid just doesn't think they're going to survive there, that, but there's something there, something that they're running for. Let's see. Hailey's mom said after Hailey got out, it took almost a year for her to stop asking me if she could use the bathroom or take a bath or look in the pantry or if she could eat. See, right there, that's criminal. Your daughter should not have to be asking her mother these questions for over a year after she got out. And Hailey, it breaks my heart that you felt you had to, that it was just so ingrained, that it got ingrained in your brain that this is what I have to do.
There are still things to this day I feel like I have to ask permission for, and I'm a 28-year-old woman,
Yeah. But they took that away from you. Let's see. Katrina says, but the victims' voices are already discredited in this situation or circumstances due to their credibility. See, they're going to say that you're criminals or whatever the case is, already ruining that credibility. That's how they will try and portray it, which was likely the intention done for that reason. So that's why they do this. And that's why they think they can get away with it.
But she has gotten away with it. I have followed her and was involved for a long time. And that's exactly what she portrayed. That's exactly what she posted on Facebook. And those are the exact conversations that she had with people in the community.
Yeah. And Josh, you're right. It does remind us of Emily
Yes,
Pike,
it does.
because she was running and there was reasons.
There are definite reasons why she was not happy at home and not happy at the home.
And I'd like to
go ahead, Hailey.
I'd like to add a little bit more about like the whole punishment thing and like why I felt even at home the need to ask to use the restroom, because like, if you were in the middle of church or a class or someone was talking to you, like if you had to use the restroom, A, you had to ask permission, but B, you also got punished for it.
See, that's ridiculous. That's a bodily function, people. I'm sorry. People, come on.
Another thing that I would like to also emphasize on kind of is how some of the women, when you come there, you're made to be a leader. When you're in a program, you're made to lead the program, which didn't make sense to me. I left prison and within a month I was a leader. And within, like, after I became a leader, it was probably like 3 weeks later, I was kicking another woman out of the program. And those things are harmful because, like, I was paying to be in a program that I was leading, and I felt responsible after leaving it. I grieved, my spirit grieved for kicking out 2 other women. It was 2 other women that I ended, in the whole time that I had taken part in kicking out. And I was nowhere in the place to be doing that, and it that was also another form of pitting us women against each other and spiritual abuse, I believe.
Yeah. And Chong, you can talk on that too about.
Yes. One of the things that and this is why I want to create the film, because the psychology of human trafficking, and it's been going on everywhere. What happens is the trafficker ends up grooming a vulnerable person. And a lot of times, those vulnerable people or children, they come from juvenile justice center. They were constant runaways. They were considered bad kids. No one's going to listen to them. And so when you create a program saying, look at me, I'm the savior, I'm the one who's saving this, that's a trafficking mentality. And then you take in all these girls who are all vulnerable, all these women. You go to the prison, you act like you're doing a prison ministry. And then you find out, oh, Stephanie, you're getting on in 3 minutes? Call me. Here's my number. I got a program just for you. And that's what traffickers do. They groom. So when people keep talking about zip ties and Kleenex on a car handle, no, that is not trafficking. There's a difference between someone just straight up kidnapping and killing your children. That's not trafficking. That's just murder. What traffickers need to do, they need to have your consent. By having your consent, they manipulate you. They Bible thump you. They tell you, this is what the Lord wants. You want to follow the Lord? And you're sitting there going, I want to follow the Lord. Okay, then you have to follow these steps. You trust me. You know, you don't know anyone else. She came in and groomed you, or even other people hear about the program, like my friend when she told me about Heaven's Army. But the moment I spoke to Lenora, I had a bad feeling. But there was a reason why I wanted to go and speak, because I wanted to see what her program was really like. I could have said no. I could have said no, because I will tell you this much. During that time, I was hurting for money. I was hurting for money, but I did not charge her because I knew if I charged her, she would say, no, I'm sorry. I had that feeling. So I went out there. I told my husband, I'm going to have to use the credit card. I'm going out there and I'm going to see what this is about, because there's something funny about this place, but I have to see it myself. And this is the one shot that I have. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful because I got to rescue people. I got to rescue 2 women out of that cult. And I witnessed the malnutrition. I witnessed her verbally abusing these girls, telling them that they were damned to hell if they leave. That's false imprisonment. I am also a mandated reporter. You cannot hold any person against their will. Even in mental hospitals, you have to sign an AMA against medical advice if you decide to take yourself out. But here's the sad part that I see this whole dynamic, because it's one thing to support a group that you know nothing about or you're turning a blind eye. But when you got the constables, when you got the judicial system, when you got the police chief, and I'm going to say this, what the hell is going on? Are you guys doing trafficking? Are you taking these girls' kids? And here's another thing that I'd like to know. Anyone that is watching, if you experience or you know someone that Heaven's Army have taken their kids and have not given their child back, you can email me. You can send it privately to me, because that's kidnapping. Because I even called the state of Texas and asked them, is a nonprofit allowed to remove children from the parent? And they said, unless it's a mental health hospital, jail, or an actual rehabilitation center where it's nothing but adults, but they actually have licensed psychologists and all these other things.
Right.
And when I mentioned Heaven's Army, they said they didn't know anything about that.
Yeah. And so we already know the Supreme Court has ruled unanimously in 1985. We already have case law saying vulnerable people working for survival are employees. They're not volunteers. So why are religious organizations still getting away with it? And that's because the law that wins in court doesn't always survive contact with the real world. And in this country, faith-based organizations have been handed a set of legal shields so powerful that even prosecutors who know what's happening often decide the fight isn't worth the start. The first shield is the ministerial exception. It's a doctrine that says courts cannot interfere in the employment relationship of religious organizations when the work is deemed religious in nature. Courts have stretched that definition far beyond a pastor or a priest, teachers, counselors, caregivers. Recovery program staff, if an organization can frame the work as a ministry, then they wall it off from scrutiny. And a rehabilitation program that relies on forced unpaid labor can call itself a calling, and the law steps back. So the second shield is the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and that requires the government to demonstrate a compelling interest before placing any burden on religious exercise. Protecting trafficking victims absolutely qualifies as a compelling interest. But prosecutors look at that legal mountain and they calculate the political cost of taking on a church. And a lot of them will walk away before they even file. And then there's the practical reality that makes it all worse, that the law enforcement is culturally reluctant to pursue faith-based organizations because of the political cost. There's public backlash. There's deeply ingrained instinct that churches are places of good, and that instinct is exactly what predators count on. The victims themselves are working against a system that was never designed to believe them. When you come from trafficking victims, addiction, incarceration, homelessness, the system has already tried to decide who you are, that you're not reliable, and that's wrong. And so then your abuser is also the person who supposedly is feeding you, giving you a bed, and told you God sent them to save you. That narrative almost becomes impossible to crack from the outside. But these organizations also understand the control. They hold ID documents sometimes from some of these victims. They can manage communication, not letting them talk to family. They provide housing, food, clothing, and everything else. Leaving is emotionally devastating. It means leaving with nothing, returning to the streets, maybe an addiction, and the poverty they barely survived the first time. That's not a coincidence. That is a system of control, and it mirrors your trafficking methodology almost exactly, because that's what it is. And the IRS grants nonprofit status based on the stated mission, not on audited practices or verified incomes. What you say you do, not what you actually do. The tax exempt status almost never gets pulled, no matter what investigators find happening inside. And here's the truth that all of those shields are designed to obscure. When someone arrives at a religious organization after addiction, after trauma, trafficking, prison, they're not in a position to consent freely to anything. The coercion is already built into the circumstance. Consent to volunteer under those conditions, that's not consent. Labor obtained through this exploitation of vulnerability has a legal name. It's called labor trafficking, and the religious wrapper does not change that dynamic. It just changes who's willing to look. And in Texas, the office that's supposed to be the last line of defense for victims of trafficking, which you would think would be the Attorney General's office, they're struggling because we have documented cases where offices have negotiated plea deals for men trafficking minors, deals that resulted in no prison time, no sex registry for the offender, cases where staff turnover was so severe prosecutors lost track of their victims, cases that were ready for trial simply fell apart. One mother just recently in Bexar County sat in that courtroom and watched men who harmed her child walk free. She says it's a total fail, a betrayal. I don't even trust the system. And we have questions because here's what we keep coming back to. If the nonprofits aren't being held accountable, and if the prosecutorial system isn't holding your trafficker accountable, who exactly is protecting the people? You know, I refuse to end our conversation with only the wound. This is the wound. If we can name the problem, we can fix it. The real fixes exist if anyone in power ever decides these victims are worth fighting for, and we say they are. And closing that gap, they need to redefine the ministerial exception. Stop letting organizations self-certify. The ministerial exception was designed to protect the relationship between a church and its clergy. It was never meant to shield commercial labor options from accountability by slapping a ministry label on them. Courts need to apply the same economic reality test that the Supreme Court used in the Alamo case, looking at the actual nature of the work, not the religious framing around it. If you're running a gas station, you're running a gas station. Congress could codify that distinction. State legislators could do it first. Mandatory independent oversight of faith-based residential programs. Any organization that houses vulnerable adults in recovery, people transitioning out of incarceration or fleeing trafficking or homelessness, should be subject to regular unannounced inspections by independent bodies that do not defer to the organization's religious identity. Licensing, financial audits, documentation of labor practices. If you receive government funding or tax exempt status, the public has a right to know what happens inside those walls. So, Cleveland, you have a right to know what's going on inside those walls. 3, tie tax exempt status to verified practices. The current system is granting this nonprofit status, and then they rely on the organization to self-report. And that's got to change. Any faith-based nonprofit operating residential or rehabilitation program needs a periodic compliance review that examines the labor conditions, not the mission statement. The tax-exempt shield should not be unconditional. It should be revocable when abuse is documented. Create a federal trafficking designation specific to coercive institutional labor. Right now, prosecutors just use a shoehorn, and put it into case statuses largely written with sex trafficking in mind. We need explicit federal recognition that institutional labor trafficking, where vulnerable people are recruited under the guise of rehabilitation and then controlled through dependency, is a distinct category of crime with its own charging framework. That removes the excuse that the statute doesn't quite fit. Build real exit infrastructure. One of the most powerful tools these organizations are wielding is the knowledge that the victims have nowhere to go. Leaving means returning to the streets, the addiction, the danger they came from. The solution isn't only prosecution, it's building a genuine off-ramp. Transitional housing, peer support, legal advocacy, therapy for survivors of institutional exploitation. When leaving is survivable, more people leave. When more people leave, more people talk. When more people talk, cases get built. Train law enforcement to recognize the pattern. Document confiscation, isolation, financial dependency. Manufacture debt. Psychology conditioning through faith. These are trafficking red flags. Every anti-trafficking unit in this country should be trained to recognize them in faith-based settings, specifically because that is where cultural reluctance is the highest and victims are the most invisible. Is there even one single person watching right now can do? You talk about it. You name it. You refuse to grant automatic credibility to any organization simply because they wrap themselves in religion. Predators always have known that the collar, the cross, and the mission statement by silence. I'm sorry, look at the child predators that have come out of the Catholic Church. They have always known the public would resist the idea that a place of worship could also be a place of exploitation. But we see the history. That instinct is a tool they yield against their victims every single day. You guys are the counter to that. Not just advocates, not just prosecutors, not just the victims, the people watching, the community here, the people who share the content, you who ask questions when something doesn't feel right. Silence is how this keeps surviving. Every time we say the name, every time you share the story, every time you refuse to look away, you're going to make it harder for the next one to operate for 24 years, like the Alamo Foundation did. Every justice, it's 9-0, said that that was not religion. The federal labor law, that the word volunteer does not mean an organization wants it to mean when the people doing the work have nowhere else to go. The Supreme Court told us the truth in 1985. It's long past time the rest of us and the rest of the system, we need to catch up. And that's what's important. You know, quickly, let me go over some missing people. We have 2 people because I can't miss our missing people. Remember the faces. Put the cell phone down when you're out and about, people. This is important. We know that people sometimes will leave voluntarily, but then they get in a position that they can't help it. They can't protect themselves. And we know trafficking is real. So if something doesn't feel right, go ahead and make that call to 911. If you fear calling 911, we have a tip line. Email us at tips4 trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com. Also, if you have tips, if anyone has stories like these ladies, send them. I'll send them on to Chong. Let's help them out. But our first person is Larry Taus. He's 67. He's an elder. He's from the Miami, Oklahoma. He's known to frequent Miami and Bartsville, Oklahoma. He is Cherokee, Cheyenne, and Arapaho. He's 5'9". He has gray hair. He may have a beard. He has brown eyes. He's 67. Please contact Bartlesville Police Department at 918-338-4001. The case number is 2026-001-8459 or contact 911. You can also please be on the lookout for Sienna Marie Douche. She's 26. She's been missing since April 17th of 2026. She was traveling from Saskatchewan to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. She is a native of First Nations, 5'5" to 5'6", with brown hair, shoulder length, hazel eyes. She was wearing a pink LA hat, a white tank top, a gray cardigan. Sienna is 5.5 months pregnant with twins. This is a medical emergency. So please, if anyone knows of her last contact, she had a video chat with a best friend. So if anyone's seen her, please, we're begging you to contact the police. A white male companion described as having blue eyes was with her at the time. Saskatchewan Police Department, 306-953-4222, or the Edmonton Police at 780-423-4567. Okay, that's it for that. If you see something, say something, guys. You know, that's what we do here. Chong, any last words, my dear?
I just want to thank the girls for coming on, being brave, sharing your story. And I also want to let everyone know we are going to do a part 2. So if there are more victims that want to come out, if you don't want to show your face and you just want to show an initial of your name and just audio, you're more than welcome to do that. Because the more people that come forward, the stronger our case. And any attorneys out there, even personal injury attorneys that are willing to take our case, please contact me. I'd be happy to. I've done legal advocacy work, so I got everything organized.
Okay. And Terri, any last words for those that you've had communication with, or for the audience?
I want to tell these girls I'm super proud of you. Every last one of you is amazingly strong women, and your story is important. And what's happened to you, it wasn't an accident. It was something that she did intentionally. And we're not going to quit fighting for you ever. And I always have your back, and Chong always has your back. So just know you're not alone. There's many of you women out there together, but we're going to keep standing. We're going to keep fighting for you, and we're not going to give up.
Wanda, any last words?
I would just like to say the exit plan. Her exit plan is not an exit plan for success. She is working in a place that she preaches and has preached for the last 10 years. That is a high human trafficking hotspot. And her exit plan is to drop those ladies right back off into that spot. I refused to drop one of those ladies off in 2019, and I was punished in multiple ways for giving that lady to a safe place instead of jumping her off in that hot spot. So please help. We need the help.
Okay.
We need the outside help.
Okay, Stephanie.
Well, I want to say something to people that support churches that, sometimes you don't really know what you're supporting. And so you got to ask the hard questions and look at how they respond to you. If they're responding with a place of love and compassion, or if they something, anybody that is doing all the right things does not mind being monitored,
Right.
or being questioned.
Yep.
And so you have to start looking at what you're donating to, and really the impact that it's making on these girls and on the women and children. And I just think that I'd like to speak to that. There are some people that have, figured it out and speaking out with us, that we're donors. But there's a vast majority of people that just treat us like we're crazy because we spoke out. And I just feel like it's your responsibility, your financial responsibility and your Christian responsibility to ask those questions and to make sure that what the cause you're donating to is really an honest cause.
Right.
So that's what I want to bring up too.
And Hailey?
Yes. So, Lenora would always look down on us and make us look down on ourselves and each other. And what I want to say to all my fellow survivors here, anyone who survived Heaven's Army that hasn't spoken out but might be watching this, that like, you are enough, you are beautiful, you can do anything you set your mind to. That's the current path I'm on, and I have to remind myself every day that I'm in college. But regardless of how she put you down, like, just know that the Bible says what's meant for evil will always come out for the good. And so to just keep that in mind, know that, you are worth fighting for. You're worth joining this battle. You're worth your story being told.
And our
Yes.
community is now here for you guys. Stay in touch with us. Anything that we can do. Tonight, our guest did something extremely hard. They sat in a space and told the truth about people and institutions that had power over them. And that takes something special people can't even name. Stephanie, Wanda, and Hailey. And then Chong and Terri with their advocacy. We thank you so much. It was an honor. And this community sees you. What you heard tonight, this isn't an isolated story, though. This is a pattern. And patterns only break when people refuse to look away. So if you know someone who's in a program and it doesn't feel right, trust your instinct. Ask the hard questions. If you have a story that deserves our attention, reach out to us. We've given you the tip line. It's also in our description. But you might ask, how does this affect me personally? I'm not joining a program. So now I want to bring it home to you guys, because this isn't about one organization, one founder, one era, or one state. It's about every organization out there asking for your money right now, like Stephanie was talking about. Some of them have a donation button on their website. Some of them have a pulpit. Some of them have both. And if you remember our interview with Professor Andrew McLeod, the chairman of Griffin Law and the executive director of Hear Their Cries, he sat with Doc and me and talked about exactly this situation. How do you know where your money is actually going? Especially when we're talking about organizations that serve vulnerable people, children, people escaping addiction, survivors of trafficking, the unhoused, the grieving, the desperate. Because the Alamo case taught us that nobody wants to say out loud, a nonprofit status is not a character reference. A cross on the wall is not a background check. That Alamo registry or ministry was a registered nonprofit. It had a religious mission, and it told the world it was rescuing people from addiction and homelessness, but the IRS never revoked its status while it was operating. Government-funded programs exist around it. Donors gave. Churches looked the other way, and inside those walls, roughly 300 people worked in commercial businesses with no cash wages, no freedom to leave, and no legal protection anyone was willing to enforce. That is labor trafficking, you guys. It's dressed in a mission statement and wrapped in a Bible verse. Alamo is not the outlier, though. His case study in a pattern that repeats itself across this country, across denominations, and across categories, and across decades. We've seen it in children's homes where abuse was institutionalized, reported internally and buried. We've seen it in faith-based rehab programs where participants sign away their rights as a condition of receiving help, and leaving is framed as spiritual failure. We've seen it in international ministry organizations where children were transported across borders under the cover of humanitarian work. In domestic violence shelters, group homes, sober living facilities, youth ministries, it happens to our Native and Indigenous brothers and sisters. Overseas orphanages that don't actually have orphans. They have children whose families were told their kids would get a better education. The religious exemption is not a tax status. In many states, it's also an exemption from licensing requirements, mandatory reporting, background checks, and state inspections. Organizations know this. Some of them choose it deliberately, not because God told them to, because regulators can't touch them. So before you give, and I want you to give, I want you to support organizations who do the real work. But you need to ask yourself one question first. If this organization is not what it claims to be, what am I attached to? Ask the tough questions, because when you donate to an organization that is exploiting the people it claims to serve, your money does not disappear into a void. It pays for the food that keeps someone dependent. It might fund the roof that someone cannot leave. It subsidizes the operation. You become part of the infrastructure, not because you're a bad person, but because you didn't ask. So this isn't guilt, this is information, and it's exactly why the question matters. And here's what Professor McLeod taught us to ask before you give a single dollar.
Mhm.
Does this organization have SAM insurance, sexual abuse and molestation insurance? The first time we heard about that, we were astonished. But any legitimate organization working with vulnerable people should carry it and be able to provide documentation if they cannot or will not. That tells you everything. This is not a gotcha question. This is a floor. Does the organization have independent oversight? Not a board composed of the founder's family and longtime friends, not a pastor who reports to himself. Independent oversight means someone outside the organization or religion has real authority to receive complaints, conduct an investigation, and act on the findings without the founder's permission. The Alamo Foundation answered to nobody. That is not oversight. That is a design featured of organizations to have something to hide. Look at the board. Google the names. Are the people being served free to leave? It sounds simple, but that's the most important question. The economic reality will test the Supreme Court applied unanimously in that case. Can a person walk away? If they do, what are they walking away to? Like you heard the girl say, they wanted him to drop him off into nowhere. If an organization controls housing, food, communication, and identity documents, and leaving means losing your bed, your meals, your phone access, and your community, then the people inside are not volunteers. They are captives with a different name on the paperwork. Is there financial transparency? Can you find audited financials? Are they filed? Are they accessible? Can you trace how money moves from donation to program delivery? Faith-based organizations are often exempt by the same IRS disclosure requirements that apply to your secular nonprofits, which means you may have to dig harder, but do your research. Dig harder. Use the tools that exist. There are groups like Charity, Navigator, GuideStar, ProPublica's Nonprofit Explorer. Search these organizations along the words of complaint, lawsuit, investigation, abuse, labor violations. Look at the founder's name. If you've gotten out and been abused by the system, report it. Warn others. Your voice is part of the accountability that the law has repeatedly failed to provide. Understand what religious exemptions mean in your state. In some jurisdictions, a faith-based organization can operate a residential facility for children, a drug rehab, a shelter without the licensing required of any other secular counterpart. They can decline state inspections. They can define their own standards of care. When something goes wrong, they get to frame accountability as persecution. Your due diligence is not paranoia. Your questions are not an attack on faith. Your skepticism is not cynicism. It's what the law has repeatedly failed to provide you. The mission statement is not the mission. The accountability is. And this is what's important, because if they're doing these things and you're donating, they're doing it in your name too. So I want you to think about that. Remember, every killer, every predator depends on our silence. Don't give it to them. If you know something, speak up. And remember, it wasn't a mannequin. It never was. Our motto is silence is betrayal. So if you have a story, please reach out to us. On Thursday nights, we answer our MMIP cases. On Sundays, we do all sorts of cases. Chong will be back. We will do more on this story because this is an important story we need to tell. Because these victims, they're worth our support. They're worth fighting for, because you don't know the day that you might be one. We never know. So thank you all for coming. I want you all to remember, until next time, you stay informed, you stay compassionate, keep seeking truth, and keep demanding justice, and never stop speaking up. Say goodnight, Doc.
Good night, Doc.
We love you all, and remember, the criminals never stop, so neither do we. And until next time, you keep fighting for justice. We're going to see you Thursday night. Yeah, because today's Sunday. So ciao, and have a good evening, everybody. And listen to the song at the end. We love you all.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.
Bye.
She walked through the fire and she came out standing. Scars on her hands, but her head held high. They found her at rock bottom, said they had the answer. Wrapped it up in scripture, wrapped it up in light. Said, come on, sister, we will be your people. Said, we'll help you heal and we'll help you rise. But the hand that's reaching out to pull you upward can still be the hand that covers your eyes. In the name of grace, they took everything, put you to work while the offering plate kept filling. Called you broken, called you liar, called you lost, but you were never broken, you were just the cost. In the name of grace, in the name of grace, they hid a prison behind a holy place. You came in searching for the light of God, and they handed you chains and called it love, and called it burned her clothes at the door like an offering. Ate the scraps from a table that was never hers. Asked for a doctor, they said pray it out, sister, while the sickness grew louder and the silence hurt. They stood at the pulpit calling her a liar. Told the congregation she had demons inside, but she watched them take freely from the hand of plenty, and every word they preached was a practice lie. In the name of grace, they took everything, put you to work while the offering plate kept filling. Called you broken, called you liar, called you lost, but you were never broken, you were just the cost. In the name of grace, in the name of grace, they hid a prison behind a holy place. You came in searching for the light of God, and they handed you chains and called it love. You are not what they said You are not the label they pinned to your worth. The fire you walked through made you stronger, and the God you sought, he was with you from birth. They weaponized faith like it was theirs to own, but no one who loves you tears you down to the bone. In the name of grace, they took everything, put you to work while the offering plate kept filling. Called you broken, called you liar, called you lost, but you were never broken, you were just the cost. In the name of grace, in the name of grace, we are naming the wolves and we're naming the place. You came in searching for the light of God, and you found it in yourself. All along, you're still standing, still standing. They couldn't take what was all